It's the final week, the first full final week before the US presidential elections on November the 3rd. President Trump and his Democratic challenger, Joe Biden, they are planning whistle-stop tours in some very swing states, some key states that they're looking at. Mr. Trump is due to appear at 2 rallies today in Pennsylvania. He'll then make his way to Michigan, Wisconsin, as well as Nebraska. He's looking to close that gap on Joe Biden as he trails in some very key polls. Now, campaigning has continued despite a fresh outbreak of COVID-19 at the White House. Several close aides of Vice-President Mike Pence, they've tested positive for coronavirus. His chief of staff, Meadows, has admitted that the US is not going to control the pandemic. Now, President Trump, however, is much more optimistic about the US recovery.
Many of our greatest companies and labs are coming out very quickly with the vaccines. They're doing great, very shortly, very quickly. It's going to be delivered fast. That will quickly end the pandemic. It's ending anyway. We're rounding the turn, but the vaccine will get it down fast.
Mr. Biden will stay in his home state of Delaware before hitting the road again. That's for the rest of the week. He plans to visit Georgia, a state that hasn't voted for a Democratic presidential candidate in more than a quarter of a century.
Donald Trump hasn't delivered on a damn thing he said he'd do. He hadn't delivered on infrastructure. He talked in 2017, 18, 19, 20. He's going to give us an infrastructure plan. He hadn't done a damn thing. If our roads, our bridges are crumbling.
Simon Marks joins us live now right from Washington, D.C. Simon, both of these candidates are going all out to win these swing states. They're very important from them. Trump has been playing a very strong ground game, and you've got Biden going all out on the airwaves. Can it make any difference at this point, though?
Well, every single vote counts, of course, Dawn, between now and Election Day. But look, we already know that nearly 60 million Americans have already cast their votes in this election. So for them, they've been able to put this all behind them already. There are, of course, at least another 70 or 80 million Americans who have not yet cast their ballots. And so we are going to see a hell-for-leather race to the finish, as we traditionally see in every American presidential election campaign, but this one, of course, somewhat different because of the impact of COVID-19, with Joe Biden holding these drive-in rallies all over the country, while President Trump presses ahead with the big 1,000-strong rallies with supporters and many members of his own staff choosing not to wear face masks, even after the news that 5 people within Vice President Mike Pence's immediate orbit, including his chief of staff, have tested positive for COVID-19. The appearance by the White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, over the weekend on television, in which he appeared to suggest, in fact conceded, that it is not possible for the United States to control the pandemic, has certainly added fresh ammunition to Joe Biden's argument that Donald Trump not only has failed to overcome the crisis that has been wrought here as a result of the arrival of COVID-19, but in fact isn't really even trying to do that. So you can expect Joe Biden absolutely to round on that comment. But equally, Donald Trump continues to push away at his claims that the Bidens are an organized crime family and that Joe Biden and his son Hunter were engaged in corrupt activities in China. Unverified reports published by one New York tabloid, but we learnt this morning reports that the Wall Street Journal decided not to pursue because they couldn't find verification for the arguments that President Trump is making. So a pretty vigorous few days left between now and the end of this election.
And meantime, Simon, the president has, in just a few hours from now, he's got Amy Coney Barrett, the final vote for her in the Supreme Court. That's going to be a big win for him.
Yes, it's going to be a very important win for him, particularly with his core supporters. Judge Amy Coney Barrett, of course, Donald Trump's nominee to succeed the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who passed away last month. She is of a much more conservative outlook, of course, than Justice Ginsburg. Democrats believe that she shouldn't even be being brought up for a vote because they argue that the Republicans denied Barack Obama a similar opportunity 10 months before his term in office expired. But nonetheless, the Republicans are absolutely forging ahead with this. If confirmed, Judge Amy Coney Barrett will become the third justice of 9 selected by Donald Trump. And that means that even if Donald Trump loses this presidential election, the ideological impact of his administration will be felt potentially for decades to come here as she weighs in on key constitutional issues that come before the court. The president's had one last-minute wrinkle. Senator Susan Collins of Maine says she will not vote in favour of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. She is a centrist Republican fighting for her own political life in her home state. But the Republicans appear to have the votes, and Judge Amy Coney Barrett could be on the court within hours.
Simon, thank you very much for that update. Simon Marks, right here in Washington, D.C.